The dog did this to his owner every night. Part 1. Yulia and Bronx, a life or death journey filled with love. Since childhood, Yulia had always had a special love for dogs. Her earliest memories were filled with images of her parents' gentle German shepherd, a loyal, four-legged friend who silently accompanied her through her youth. As she grew up and moved out to live independently, Yulia rented a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood, where friendly neighbors and a sunlit little garden made life feel peaceful. She worked as an accountant for a local company, a stable but admittedly monotonous job. Many nights, lying alone on her single bed, Yulia longed for the warm, comforting presence of a dog. After much hesitation, she finally decided to fulfill a long-cherished dream, adopting a rescue dog. She spent many weekends visiting animal shelters. Then, at a small shelter on the outskirts of the city, Yulia locked eyes with a young German Shepherd puppy, intelligent eyes, tinged with sadness, as if silently pleading for a second chance. Her heart knew immediately, this was the companion she had been searching for. She named him Bronx. From the moment Bronx entered her small apartment, it came alive. He was playful yet obedient, always sticking close to her side. Yulia quickly grew to love him deeply, considering Bronx a true family member. However, within just a few days, a strange habit began. Every morning, Yulia would find Bronx curled up sleeping beside her in bed. At first, she firmly tried to enforce boundaries, guiding Bronx back to a soft mat laid by the bedroom door. But Bronx was patient and stubborn, sneaking back into her bed every night, nestling close. Though she tried to stay strict, Yulia eventually gave in. Oh well, she thought, as long as I keep things clean. Bronx, thankfully, was very clean, and soon it became normal to have a warm, furry ball snuggled beside her each night. Life drifted on peacefully, until Yulia began to feel that something wasn't right. At first, she simply felt more tired than usual. Mornings left her drained, as if her energy had been completely siphoned away overnight. At work, she felt like a ghost, unable to focus on the dry numbers in front of her. She blamed it on work stress, poor sleep, even the changing weather. But things spiraled quickly out of control. She began calling in sick often because she physically couldn't get out of bed. Sometimes just standing up to get a glass of water made her dizzy and breathless. Helplessness and despair gradually consumed Yulia's mind. Terrified, she finally went to the hospital for a full checkup. But all her blood tests, scans, and scopes came back normal. None of the doctors could find a cause. Desperate, Yulia mentioned Bronx, her nightly bed companion. The doctor immediately grew suspicious. Perhaps Yulia had developed an allergic reaction to dog fur, a surprisingly common cause of chronic fatigue. He prescribed antihistamines and strongly advised keeping Bronx off the bed. Following the advice, Yulia started the medication and strictly banned Bronx from climbing up again. Bronx, sensing the change, obediently curled up on his mat outside her bedroom door. A week passed and Yulia started feeling a little better. Hope flickered inside her. But then everything collapsed when Bronx stealthily snuck back into bed, and after just a few nights, Yulia's condition worsened dramatically. Not only was she exhausted, but she also fell into a state of emotional apathy. Life became a gray, soulless blur. Eventually, she had to quit her job to focus entirely on recovering. One gloomy afternoon, a close friend, a veterinarian, came by to visit. Hearing Yulia's story, he immediately grew suspicious. He insisted they bring Bronx to his clinic for specialized testing, even though he himself didn't have high hopes of finding anything conclusive. The wait for results felt endless. Yulia was on the brink of collapse, fearing the worst. Then the phone rang. Her friend's voice was tight with tension. Bronx was carrying an extremely rare parasitic bacterium. While harmless to dogs and humans, especially those with weakened immune systems, it could cause severe body-wide exhaustion, and if untreated, even death. Worse, the infection didn't appear in regular blood tests. It could only be detected using rare microbiological analysis. An emergency treatment plan was immediately put in place. Yulia would have to endure a long course of aggressive antibiotics. Bronx, too, needed medical treatment. The following weeks were brutal. Yulia was plagued by fevers, nausea, and crushing weakness from the medication's side effects. But Bronx, her little companion, remained faithfully by her side, his eyes full of guilt and love as if silently whispering, "I'm sorry." Gradually Yulia began to recover. For the first time in months she woke up feeling light, her mind clear as a fresh blue sky after a storm. Final tests confirmed it, she was fully cured. That day Yulia hugged Bronx tightly on her bed, tears streaming down her face. Though he had nearly been the cause of tragedy, Bronx had also been her inspiration to fight until the very end. From that moment on, Bronx continued sleeping by Yulia's side every night, but now between them was a bond of life and death, unbreakable and eternal. Part 2. When Love Becomes a Mission. After surviving her ordeal, Yulia realized Bronx wasn't just a rescue dog. Their life-or-death story taught her a profound truth. Loving animals isn't just about care, it's about understanding, responsibility, and gratitude. During her months of recovery, Yulia regularly took Bronx for checkups. She also began studying veterinary medicine, rare infectious diseases, and new treatment methods for both animals and humans. One day during a seminar on rescue dog care, a spark ignited in her mind. Why not create a support fund to help dogs like Bronx, silent creatures carrying untold stories? Together with her vet friend, she founded Bronx's Hope, a small organization dedicated to rescuing, treating, and rehoming severely ill or abandoned dogs. The name, Bronx's Hope, was her deepest tribute to the dog who had saved her life. Thanks to tireless efforts, within just 2 years, Bronx's Hope had successfully treated over 200 dogs. Many found loving homes, where they were cherished as little heroes. As for Bronx, the silent hero, he found a new role, part-time therapy dog visiting children's hospitals and nursing homes with Yulia. His gentle presence, soulful eyes, and calm demeanor brought miraculous warmth to weary hearts. Whenever someone asked about Bronx, Yulia would softly smile and say, "Bronx didn't just save me once. He saved me for the rest of my life." And so, on golden afternoons, Bronx and Yulia would stroll peacefully through quiet streets, two souls forever bound by the simplest and most powerful of miracles, the miracle of love. Part 3. The Legacy of Bronx. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. Now in her 30s, Yulia had a small, happy family. She married Alex, the vet friend who had stood by her through her darkest days. They lived in a modest home in the suburbs with a spacious, sun-drenched garden. And of course Bronx was still there. Though his fur had turned silver and his steps grew slower, Bronx's eyes still shone with gentle wisdom and quiet pride. He was no longer the mischievous pup he once was. He had become a silent guardian, ever watchful over Yulia and her family. Bronx's Hope had grown into a large organization, saving thousands of dogs every year. Although Bronx no longer joined every therapy visit, he remained the heart of the foundation, a living symbol of strength, loyalty, and forgiveness. One spring day, Yulia decided to bring home a new family member, a tiny black German Shepherd puppy with big, mischievous eyes. She named her Hope, a reminder that love and hope are endless and eternal. When Hope first touched her nose to Bronx's, Yulia saw Bronx gently bump his head against hers in a soft welcome. Despite his frailty, Bronx patiently taught Hope how to listen, to wait, and above all, how to love. On warm afternoons, Yulia would sit on an old wooden bench on the porch, Bronx resting his head on her lap while Hope dashed joyfully around the garden. She would stroke Bronx's silvery fur, feeling each slow, steady breath, each one like a quiet song etched into her soul. She knew Bronx's time was running short. But she also knew Bronx would never truly leave. Because Bronx had left her an irreplaceable legacy. A heart that loved deeply, a life that cherished every small moment, and a faith that even in loss, love endures and lights the darkest paths. And when the sunsets blazed like the brightest days of their lives, Yulia would gently whisper to Bronx, "Thank you, Bronx, for everything." Part 4. Bronx's Last Night. It was a warm, peaceful early summer night. The stars twinkled like tiny lanterns above, casting a gentle light over the lavender-scented garden. Yulia knew, she could feel it, Bronx was ready for his final journey. That day Bronx barely ate. He simply lay beside Yulia, occasionally lifting his deep, wise eyes to meet hers, not with sadness but with calm acceptance, like a warrior who had fulfilled his mission. Hope, the little shepherd, seemed to sense it too. She clung to Bronx, snuggling into his silver fur, occasionally licking his paw tenderly. Bronx gently lowered his head, touching Hope's forehead in a slow, loving farewell. That evening Yulia laid the softest blanket on the porch, Bronx's favorite spot. She sat beside him, cradling his head in her lap. No tears. Only the whisper of the wind through the trees, the rich scent of lavender, and the warmth of unspoken love. Alex and their young son Daniel sat quietly nearby. Hope curled up next to Bronx, resting her little head on his back. Yulia softly sang a lullaby, a wordless tune she had often hummed to Bronx when he was young, like a summer breeze across a field. The starlight reflected in Bronx's eyes. He looked at his family, the ones he had loved with all his being. And then, in the stillness of midnight, Bronx let out one final, gentle sigh. His breath slowed, like a flame burning to its brightest before fading peacefully away. No whimper. No final tear. Bronx left this world as he lived. Silently, bravely, and filled with love. Yulia held him close, whispering into his ear. "Go now, Bronx. You did so well. I love you forever." And as if in reply, a soft breeze swept through the garden, carrying tiny lavender petals up toward the sky. The next morning Yulia's family buried Bronx beneath the great oak tree at the back of the garden, where the sunlight always shone and where Hope loved to run. A small stone marker was placed there, engraved with simple words. Bronx, a life of love. A soul that never fades. Every morning, as the first sunlight streamed through her window, Yulia still smiled, looked toward the sky, and whispered, "Good morning, Bronx." Because she knew, even though Bronx was no longer with her in body, his love, unconditional, courageous, and pure, lived on. In every beat of her heart. In every breath of the days to come. In every affectionate lick from Hope. And in every heart Bronx had ever touched.